It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Stay tuned, and after the show, I'll provide details about how you can win a free copy of Mike Weinberg's new book, Sales Management Simplified. Hello and welcome to the show. I couldn't be more excited to talk with my guest today. Joining me again, second time around, Mike Weinberg, best-selling sales author, speaker, and consultant. Mike is a leading expert on new business development, and I can say this now, an expert on sales management with the release of his new book. You know, growing your business is hard. Growing sales is hard work, and in his wonderful new book, Sales Management Simplified, Mike takes dead aim at the self-destructive, self-defeating sales management behaviors and senior management behaviors, got to add that hinder and hamper sales growth. And he provides a great, simple framework for sales management that can help any organization achieve their goals. And that's what we're going to learn from Mike today. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Andy, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be with you and really thrilled to talk about this book too. So thank you so much.
No problem. My pleasure. It seems like you were just here yesterday.
Yeah, that was a fun conversation. So I enjoyed listening to that podcast.
Well, let me lead off. Nice work on the book. Who's the target audience for this book?
You know, it's a little broader probably than the traditional sales management book. There's probably three audiences. The main prime target is someone leading a sales team or sales organization. But I took pretty blunt aim at senior executives in several of the chapters because I see a lot of sales managers that are living in untenable situations and struggle in their role, not for their own fault, because of the way their company sets up sales management. So I shared some pretty hard, blunt truth to senior executives in there. And the third audience is salespeople, because there's enough sales help in this sales management book that any salesperson who has aspirations for leadership would benefit from it. And frankly, I'll make the offer here. I haven't written this post yet, but I'll throw it out there right now. I'm offering $1,000 to any salesperson who buys this book and gives it to their management, and I get brought in for anything. And if a salesperson buys this book and gives it to their management and they get fired, I'll give you $100. And 5 times what you paid for the price of the book. I'm so convinced that management needs to read this book that I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is on that.
Yeah, it sounds like that should be the incentive should be reversed. If they get fired, they get $1,000. If they bring you in, you get $100.
Let me think about that now that you've brought it up that way.
So, an early chapter in the book is titled, you're going to win an award just for the titles of your chapters. The early chapter in the book is titled, You Can't Effectively Run a Sales Team When You're Buried in Crap. Now, tell us what you're aiming at there.
It's an angry chapter written to senior executives that are disappointed in their sales managers and frustrated with sales performance. But the truth is they have absolutely buried and distracted and diverted their sales manager from doing things to drive revenue and lead their team.
Such as?
Where do I start? I'll give you an example of one of the clients. I actually tell the story in the book. At a sales director of sales, national North American director of sales, who had 22 direct reports and spent 80% of his life attending corporate meetings, strategy meetings, product planning meetings, executive committee meetings, operations meetings. It was unbelievable. Between the emails he got all day long from people within the company and the meetings he was required to attend, he did none of the things that I was engaged to help him. He wasn't meeting with his people one-on-one, wasn't leading team meetings, wasn't getting out in the field, right? But man, with his calendar filled up with all kinds of corporate responsibilities and conference calls and administrative junk. In other companies, I see...
Well, let's ask the question about this guy. Was he making his number?
No.
So did he want to... For me, I mean, was he wanting to do more of the sales management, or was he sort of feeling comfortable that he was given an excuse to be in these meetings?
Well, this is a complicated situation. This particular guy was probably not the right fit for the job. So he didn't know what to do. And I was brought in to kind of help change the sales culture and help him. But it was two things. He didn't know what to do, but the company setup was so anti-sales and so engineering and manufacturing oriented that they couldn't get it. The best use of his time, or the person in that role's time, was not sitting in their meetings, but it would be out in the field with the people, meeting customers. It would be conducting pipeline reviews. It would be publishing sales reports and doing deal strategy meetings.
Hmm.
All the things that you'd expect a sales leader to do, he couldn't get to because he wasn't allowed to.
So why do you think the senior executives were placing these demands on it? And this is not an unusual story, right? I mean, I see this
No,
replicated in company after company as well, where sales managers are included in meetings they really don't need to be in.
I don't think a lot of senior executives, maybe not a lot, but a good number of senior executives understand the job of the sales leader. And it happens in a lot of. I walked away from two high-end sales management, sales executive jobs to go back into consulting 5 years ago. And the truth is, one of the main drivers of that decision was I got frustrated that I got to do very little of what I love to do, which is drive revenue and mentor people. Right. I left to go back to consulting, one, to make some more money, but two, because I couldn't stand the fact that I had this incredible administrative burden, and I worked for people that thought they were sales experts, but they weren't, and they didn't understand the job of the sales leader. And you can almost hear me getting angry as I relive the story, because that's part of my frustration. And frankly, Andy, I didn't really want to write this book. I am really busy from the first book, and I love teaching new business development and helping salespeople get new accounts. That's my number one passion. But honestly, what happened in my consulting practice, and I learned this the hard way, you don't transform sales organizations from the bottom. And I could coach until I'm blue in the face, trying to make individual salespeople more productive at telling their story, at prospecting, at running good discovery calls, at powering up their presentations, all the stuff I love, love, love to coach people on. But the truth was, that doesn't change the sales organization. That doesn't produce the kind of long-term results companies need. And that's when I'm like, I got to tackle sales management. I have to get in there. If we don't change the culture, if we don't help sales leaders lead effectively, if we don't have smart talent management and a good sales process that's going to be carried out, all the training and coaching in the world doesn't do anything. So I think it's just, and I kind of answered a question you didn't ask yet, but I mean, I didn't want to write this book. I felt like I had to.
So
And you've written up your couple books, and it ain't fun. I mean, that's a lot of nights I was gone, but I felt like I had to write this because to really get sustainable sales lift that will last, you got to deal with the sales leader, you got to deal with the culture, you got to deal with talent management before you're dealing with coaching on sales stuff.
okay, so before we move off this particular topic, a message to the CEOs, entrepreneurs, the C-level execs that are listening to this: what do they need to assess relative to what they're asking of their sales managers? And first and foremost, they should only really be focused on, are they making the number, right? And start from that and start peeling
Number one.
everything else away from it that doesn't contribute to that. So,
Yes. Are they making the number? And it's similar to the question we asked with something you and I talked about in the episode a couple weeks ago. Uh, just like we want to know what percent of the time our salespeople are spent actually proactively selling. Well, the same goes for sales leadership. If I'm the CEO or a senior executive, I want to know what percent of my sales leaders' time is spent actually on revenue driving sales leadership, high value activity, which means meeting with salespeople, coaching salespeople in front of customers, conducting sales team meetings, right? Reviewing results, deal strategy. If you are burdening your sales manager, I mean, I worked with one company. I ran this sales management retreat for a couple dozen sales managers from around the country, and they all came in and you would not believe what this company did to their sales managers. Some of them were working 7 days a week just to keep up with the pressure of all the tasks that were applied to them. They were doing customer service events and employee appreciation rallies, and some of them were setting up like it was a facility where clients would come to them. And some of the sales managers, when the staff was shorthanded, actually had to physically prep the facility for arriving clients. Other ones were complaining that phone calls were actually rolling over to their line when the receptionist or customer service was busy. The sales manager ended up getting the inbound phone call.
right.
In companies where I worked, I worked for a CEO where it became a game to see how many times a week he could gather the executive team in the conference room so he could pontificate and have us work on some exercise. Well, after 5, 6, 7 hours a week sitting in the conference room, I'm like, I'm not getting my sales leadership work done here.
Yeah.
So it's all that stuff.
Right. And this is, yeah, for the audience listening to the show, this show's about how do you accelerate your sales growth? How do you accelerate your business growth? And to be able to do that, you need to have people doing the jobs you hired them to do. And part of it seems to me, and I've seen this in companies, is that we're certainly seeing more of a trend towards a consensus style of management, right? And I just wonder whether that's part of it, right? That people feel like they need to include people to get buy-in or whatever, when it doesn't help them. You're not helping them by including in this meeting. You're actually hurting them.
Totally. Totally. I want the opposite. I mean, when everyone does their primary job, the world works a lot better. Enough with the collaboration. Let the guy go lead. I mean, your sales leader should be wearing a battle helmet, leading the troops into battle. And what I see a lot of times is the company forces them to take off that battle helmet and play garbage collector. I worked in a company, one of those two companies I quit before I went back to consulting. I mean, I worked in a company where I started getting technical phone calls from customers on my cell phone. And I had to do like private investigator work to figure out how in the world were these customers getting my cell phone to call me with technical questions I couldn't answer, right? It was like I'm the last guy in the company that should have been answering these. Well, I found out it was one of the customer service reps. And I said, "What are you doing?" I go, "Number one, I'm new here. I can't answer these questions. And number two, I got a sales team to run." And this woman looked me in the face and said, "Mike, I was told that all problems go to the sales manager." And I'm like, that's exactly why your sales force is so screwed up and sales suck, because the sales leader has been taken away from his primary job. I am not the right guy to field customer technical phone calls, let alone give out my cell phone number.
Yeah.
And Andy, it's in the name of being lean. Like you talked about collaboration and trying to like get people where we're all on the same page and the good old team feeling. Some of it, I think, is in the name of being lean. Companies are asking people to do more with less. But when you take your forward deployed, squadron leader, your sales manager, and ask him to do more, you're taking him out of leading the troops into battle. And that, no matter what else is going on, is a bad, bad decision.
I agree. And you talk about another additional problem that's sort of really related in the book about sales managers that have their heads buried in their CRM system, right? Mm-hmm. And clearly a lot of that behavior is by choice, not by dictate. Right? Somehow managers think they can manage purely through the CRM as opposed to actually interacting with their salespeople.
Yeah, it's. I hate to sound like Donald Trump, but it's a disaster. I mean, every time I say disaster, I'm picturing him. But really weird things are happening with CRM in all kinds of companies, and there are sales managers that have become desk and CRM jockeys. And they are really trying to manage, and I won't even say lead, it's manage their teams by staring at reports in the CRM and then trying to lead by sending emails, not meeting one-on-one, not having hard conversations, not coaching. And it's brutal. And I the way I like to say it sometimes is when sales managers kind of get OCD around their CRM, bad things happen. I mean, I have a couple clients, and you may not believe this, but I mean it, where the consequences are harsher for not updating tasks in the CRM and keeping your deals current than they are for missing your sales goal.
Yeah.
So you got these managers reinforcing the behavior and sending the message that, don't you dare fall behind in the CRM, because that's how I'm judging you. I'm not judging you by results. I'm judging you by what a good administrator you are.
Well, on top of that, too, what I see, and this is one of my frustrations I work with my clients on, is that even in those situations where they might be updating the record in the CRM, they're not going back and ever looking at it, right? So, I'll go through and do an account review. I've got one account I'm working with now where I do sort of a weekly sales meeting with them, and I said, okay, they don't have VP of sales. I'm filling that role temporarily for them. You don't put anything in the record, right? You guys, you say you send an attachment to the customer, it's not there. You say there's a critical sales meeting or a meeting you had with the customer and you discuss certain issues and you don't summarize the issues in the in the record. So it's like, if a manager was to go back through, as I was trying to do, to learn about the accounts, to be able to help them, help their customers, it's not there.
Yeah, they're reinforcing quantity of activity over the quality of what's getting put in, and it becomes useless. So it's just a warning. It's a warning in all size companies. CRM is great. It's great. we want to track, we want to monitor activity, we want to communicate better, we want to do deal strategy. I'm all for accountability. I love metrics. I love it. But the way it plays out in the real world gets really, really messy. And I've worked with some companies where the the sales process was completely broken, and they felt like if they brought in Salesforce.com, it would solve all their problems.
Right.
And I'm like, and I have this line in the book. And I mean this. I said, bringing in Salesforce.com for a broken sales team is kind of like a couple with a bad marriage having kids thinking it'll save their marriage. Like I mean it. Like it's not. It's going to be harder, not easier. Do you need processes? Yes. Do you want a CRM to track certain behaviors and help you communicate and create visibility and awareness? Sure you do. But a CRM doesn't cause customers to run to your door with cash in hand, right? It doesn't necessarily lighten your workload. And what drives me crazy in a lot of companies is people don't go ahead and buy the full package, or it doesn't have all the functionality they really want. So when you ask for a report, they look at you kind of cross-eyed and say, well, I think we could get that, but we didn't buy that module yet. Or, that information is in there, but we really don't know how to get it out. And I look and go, this is just great, man. Like, we'd be better off if we were using a chalkboard.
Yeah, and I think in some cases, too, companies need to be aware of the fact that is as incredible as Salesforce.com is, and the product and the breadth of what it offers and all the ancillary products and bolt-ons that are available, through the App Exchange, is that there are, for some companies, a simpler system is really what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you've got a startup, if you've got small business, sometimes, it's sort of like the old adage, you never got fired for buying from IBM, but sometimes buying the premier product is not the right way to go. That really doesn't fit what you need. If you need something to help you track deals, keep track of what's happening within your customers, give an easy tool for managers to use to review the status, and really give the managers some food for thought that can help and coach their salespeople to success, maybe the answer isn't the most elaborate, expensive system.
That is really well said. I agree.
All right, well, with that, stay with us. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Mike Weinberg as he talks about his new book, Sales Management Simplified, and shares more tips about how to drive sales with improved sales management. Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today. Welcome back. My guest today, one of my great friends, Mike Weinberg. Check out Mike online at newsalescoach.com. Be sure to check out his new book, Sales Management Simplified, available now on Amazon.com and other sellers. Mike, how you doing again?
I'm good.
Are you checking your sales on Amazon as we speak?
No, I'm focused on you asking me trick questions, so I'm ready.
So let's talk about coaching and managing, because you and I have both written about this recently, that if you're a sales manager, you don't have time to coach. What are you doing? Right? What are you doing instead that's more important than coaching? Because you're only going to succeed if you hit your number, and you're only going to hit your number if your salespeople are as productive as they could possibly be. So share with the audience, what's the difference between managing, coaching, and why should they be spending more time on coaching, and how do you effectively coach?
Well, that's a lot in that question. Let's start with this. I see a lot of managing. I see very little mentoring and coaching going on. Sometimes the only times I see coaching is when there's a newly promoted sales manager who came out of the field and was really good at selling, so they default to, hey, let me help you sell like me, which isn't the worst thing, but those people don't have the hard conversations. They don't do the management part. In my own mind, I don't really have these hard and fast definitions of what's managing and what's coaching. The way I like to talk about it is you need to be meeting with your people. And some of those meetings are management type meetings where you're pushing and going over results and reviewing the pipeline, and if necessary, asking about activity. And we can circle back to that topic. And then some of these meetings are coaching, where we are either talking about technique, we're reviewing deals and coming up with strategy, we're sharing observations of what we're observing of the salesperson as we work with them one-on-one. I mean, talk about a lost art. Field work, getting in the passenger seat in someone's car and get going on the road with them, or if it's an inside sales team, pulling up a chair and sitting next to someone and talking and watching them make calls and ask lots of questions and then sharing observations, debriefing after the call. Like that whole behavior is gone. Sales managers doing everything but coaching.
Yeah, and so it's like, to me, and I'm sorry with you, is I don't draw the distinction between management and coaching. I think if you're a sales manager, your primary function is to coach your sales team to be successful. And if that has to be your first focus. And if you're not focused on that, if you're too worried about, you want to make sure they update the CRM, but if you think that you can intuit or infer or understand exactly what's going on in accounts and what your salespeople are doing in accounts just by looking at what they enter into the CRM system, you're dead wrong. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely. And this is something I learned from my dad, and I've seen it play out in a lot of my clients. Coaching is just as important, sometimes more important, for top producers than it is for those people that are struggling. I don't know what you're seeing. I see a lot of sales managers that kind of ignore their top people, and they invest all their energy trying to get their bottom folks up to speed. And I'm for dealing with underperformance. That's a separate conversation. But very often we can get the greatest lift by coaching up and clearing the decks for our best people. Because frankly, they know what to do with the coaching. And a lot of I get asked this all the time about, how do you deal with top producers and are they coachable? Well, most top people, frankly, are coachable. They're very hard on themselves. They're competitive. They want the edge. They're confident enough to let you watch them do what they do and then take some input.
Yep.
And let me say this too, because I've worked with a handful of sales managers that were not sales experts or sales technicians. Guys, ladies, you don't need to be a sales expert to coach somebody. I admit this, Andy, freely. I go on a lot of my clients. I think very often the top producer, the number one guy there, could probably outsell me. Do I know more about sales because it's my trade and I study it? Absolutely. But some people are just naturally gifted and awesome at selling, and I still coach them. Just like I don't think the typical pro, Jordan Spieth's coach in golf, I don't think he could beat Jordan.
No.
You know what he can do? He can watch Jordan swing and share observations.
Exactly.
And he can challenge his work ethic, and he can coach him on mentality, right, and strategy. So it's an excuse to say, well, I don't know enough about sales to be a coach. You can coach. You just have to want to coach.
Exactly. I mean, it's as you said, that's multifaceted. Part of it's just accountability. Sometimes the good performers get a little stale, a little stagnant, right? So being able to be there for them to help look at what they're doing, give them advice about how they could possibly improve the routine or change the routine up to, or even how they're, I remember I used to get stale in how I'd present things to customers, right? Because it became too routine. Well, that's a great place for a coach to step in and say, even at your top performers, look, you need to change this up a little bit. Because they're just going to lose interest. And if they lose interest, then they become less effective.
Oh my gosh. Just the other week, I was over at a client with an inside sales team. And we have really worked hard over the last year to sharpen their story and their call outlines. And I just popped in the cube of a couple folks and listened to some calls. And boy, what they were saying didn't sound anything like what we had practiced. And it was like, right. I'm like, okay, either I have more work to do on the training front, or I had to ask some people one-on-one, what happened here? You sound bored and you're taking 3 sentences to get to the customer's issue. You have all this preliminary junk that's causing them to not be interested in the beginning. That's not, what happened here? So part of it is just, are you following up with people too, And you watch I go on a lot of sales calls. I love being the third guy on a face-to-face sales call. And I look like I'm taking notes about the business. I'm taking notes about the salesperson. And I'm tracking the percent of time they're talking versus the percent of time the customer's talking. And I'm looking for the interaction, and I'm watching where they miss cues. And man, you can share so much valuable feedback just by watching someone in front of a customer and showing them what they did. And then asking them what went well, what didn't go well, and reviewing the different phases of the sales call. That act alone would create incredible lift and drive performance improvement. Because people, just like major league batters have a coach. Someone's watching them. They're videotaping their swing, and they go back and they watch it.
Exactly. And I think that's really a key point, right? Is people need, even the good performers, they need people to watch what they're doing, give them feedback on it, because we can all improve. And we all should be improving. If we don't improve, we're going backwards.
Yep.
So give us the key points of your sales management framework that you talk about in the new book.
Yeah, I part 2 of the book is really the unpacking of the simple framework after I blast everyone on the issues in part 1 that cause lack of sales performance. I have a really simple, it's my own grid, it's my own framework. It's what I use when I go into a company to try to improve sales. And therefore, it's the same grid I try to help the executive and sales leader use for their own framework. And it's really 3 parts. First part is sales leadership and culture. The second part is talent and talent management. And then the third part is sales process. So I'll unpack each of those real briefly. Sales leadership and culture. That's, what does it feel like to work on this team? Is it fun? Are the hearts engaged? What does accountability look like? Are reports published and public? Does the manager meet one-on-one with each person and review results? Do team meetings, sales team meetings, are they valuable or are they a waste of time? Do they engage and align and equip the sales team, or are they just, painful like most sales team meetings?
Right.
And I'll also kind of weave compensation into that leadership piece, because that's a biggie that often gets ignored. So all the stuff of like, what is the culture of your team? What's the energy? What's the accountability? Do we celebrate? Is it fun? Are hearts engaged? And the meeting rhythms, that kind of stuff really matters. And frankly, even if you never dealt with sales process, you can get lift by having a good locker room and good accountability and good sales reports and fun and productive meetings. So that's the first part.
Sure.
Second part of the framework is talent management, and I've got a little thing with 4 R's, which I call the 4 R's of talent. Do we have the right people in the right roles? Are we retaining our top people? Because there's so few A players in sales. Nothing hurts more than losing one. So are we treating our best people differently? And are we darn sure they're happy and they're staying? So that's retain. Then we got remediate, which is just my R word for coach up or coach out.
Mm-hmm.
If we got underperformers, very quickly they got to be identified, and we need to either coach them up, there's that coaching thing again, to satisfactory levels of performance, or we've got to coach them out and move on. And then my last R is recruiting, because you always got to be building your bench. So you got talent management.
Okay.
And what's interesting, all the stuff that's in my first book from New Sales Simplified comes in the third part, that sales process. And I learned the hard way, Andy, that really to get sales lift, you can accomplish more by fixing the sales leadership and the culture and the talent management piece than by playing with sales process.
Mm-hmm.
So then the sales process piece is all the stuff I love. That's do we have good targets? Are people equipped with good weapons? Is their story succinct, compelling, customer focused, differentiating? Can they use the phone? Can they prospect? Can they get a meeting? Can they run the meeting? Can they probe? Can they share their story? Can they flesh out objections? Can they define a next step? All that stuff. And then the last part of sales process, the whole metrics, self-management, activity, pipeline management, etc. So you put those 3 things together and you can end up with one heck of a really good checklist for healthy sales leadership in those categories: sales leadership and culture, talent, and sales process.
I love it. Makes a lot of sense. So people should check out Mike's new book. It's called Sales Management Simplified. His first book was New Business Simplified. There's a little theme there, I understand. And it's available now on Amazon, brand new book. Make sure everybody goes out and check this availability in their area, get a copy. And I want to thank Mike for joining us today for the second time in just the last couple of weeks. And again, buy his new book. You'll get the straight truth, as he says, about getting exceptional results from your sales team. So Mike, tell people where they can find out more about you.
Hey, Andy, thank you again for having me and for all the kind words. My website is newsalescoach.com, and I'm pretty darn active on Twitter, and my handle there is Mike_Weinberg, WEINBERG.
Okay. And be sure to subscribe to this podcast if you want to make sure not to miss further episodes like this great episode we just had with Mike Weinberg. And remember to make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your sales and your business growth. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to ensure that you don't miss any of our episodes with top experts like Mike sharing their tips on how to accelerate the growth of your business. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Hey, this is Andy.
My guest today, Mike Weinberg, has a special offer just for you. If you're among the first 10 listeners to send Mike an email, with the subject line being the title of his new book, Sales Management Simplified, he'll send you a copy of that book. Send your emails to mike@newsalescoach.com, subject line, Sales Management Simplified, and to qualify, you have to include your name and your mailing address.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.